All right, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to PTM Hangouts. Good afternoon, everyone who is with me right now, who has joined me right now. If you are with me, if you've joined me, please let me know that you are with me and that you have joined me, and let me know what platform you are joining me on. My name is Maribeth Chima. I am the founder of the Parenting Through Mentorship Academy. I am the founder of the community on Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube. You can follow us on any of these handles and you would get value, because that's what we are about. That's what we are known for, giving out value back to back to back to back to back. All right, so welcome to today's broadcast. This is PTM Hangout. We have this live session. It's every Thursday at 1 p.m. What we hope to achieve with this live session is to talk about issues in parenting that are very universal. Issues in parenting that parents deal with, no matter your tribe, your nationality, your race, no matter where you are, these issues are very common in parenting. And so we like to talk about them in the sessions. We like to discuss them so that we can give more insight into those issues and then answer the questions that you may have concerning these issues. If you are here with me, please don't just be in the background. Say something in the comments so that I know that I have got company. I have had a bit of network challenges today. So my fingers are crossed. It's my hope and dream and prayer that we don't have network glitches throughout the period of this session. So today we're looking at reasons why failure is a gift to your child. All right, so we'll be looking at why failure is a gift to your child, why failure is a gift to you as a parent, as a matter of fact. All right, so as I said in my post earlier, I said I am very sure that a lot of us, have heard, in our workplaces, in our businesses, in all the many things, many places where we have concerns. I'm sure we've heard at different points that failure is a very important ingredient for success. We've heard people who are successful icons, when they are interviewed and they're asked how many times they failed, we've heard them say so many times, right? We have records of successful people who have failed over and over again, who have failed many times before they recorded groundbreaking successes. And these things are true. They are not stories, right? They're not just stories, they are people's reality. So yes, we cannot take away the fact that failure or mistakes are good ingredients for success, but we are not going to be coming from that. We're not going to be talking a lot about that today. Today we're going to be talking more about our experiences. We're bringing it closer, we're bringing it home to your everyday experiences as a parent. All right, the kind of mistakes, the kind of mistakes and failures and challenges that you encounter as a parent, especially when it has to do with our children. All right, so everybody encounters difficulties. We all know that. Whether you're a parent or a child, in your businesses, in your workplaces, in your relationships, right? We all encounter difficulties at one point or the other. And it's not just the difficulties. Sometimes, right, we all make mistakes also. We make mistakes, costly mistakes that we make even as adults, right? We have had, we've heard of people who have made mistakes that have cost their companies millions and billions of dollars, right? People who invest, right? Investors who invest and they lose their investment because of one mistake or one decision here or there, right? These are all realities. These are all our realities. We have heard even of medical doctors, right? Even if it's not said a lot of the times, we've heard of, medical practitioners who have made mistakes. Why are we going fast? Some of us have been in situations where medical personnel have made mistakes, with us, drug prescriptions and all of that, even administration. I remember sometime, many years ago when my friends and I were, at that point where we're having children and all of that. I remember one of my friends was really had a challenge, right? And all of that. She had lost her child, and she was she was recovering and all of that, and how, a doctor almost made a huge mistake giving her something that she was not supposed to have at all, right? So we know that these mistakes are possible. We know that these mistakes happen even for those of us who are adults, those of us who have fully developed prefrontal cortex, those of us who have our brains working at optimal capacity, we still make mistakes, and the thing about us making mistakes as adults is we find it somewhere in our hearts to forgive ourselves, or we find it somewhere in our hearts to be civil, right? When we have subordinates, or we have people who work with us and they make mistakes, especially in formal settings, we find it in our heart, or we find it in our emotions, right, to control ourselves, or to put ourselves out there in a way that we don't seem like mad people. But the thing is, when we come back home to our families, we come back home to our children, it's a different ball game. We act like some sort of deranged, a beast when it comes to our children or the people who are close to us making mistakes. Please, if you're here, don't just stay in the background. I need to know, the people who are with me, I need to know that I've got company. Please say in the background. I mean, don't just stay in the background. Say in the comments where you're watching me from, and if you're with me and you are following, if you are catching the replay, welcome. Also, let us know when you jump in on this broadcast, when you joined us from, and if you are getting value or you are learning already. If you're on YouTube, please remember to subscribe and click on that notification button or thumb, right? So that every time we go live, you are able to get notification that makes you know that we are live. All right, there's so much value going on here, and it's even better when you are here in person, when we have this live session, so that you can ask your questions firsthand and we can answer those questions firsthand. All right. So as I said, we make excuses, or we at least put ourselves together, comport ourselves to act formally, or to act, to act civil, right? When we in our formal settings, right? And we have to work with people who make major mistakes, or people who make mistakes that are huge. We still, cut them slacks, and we still, we're civil about this. But when it comes to our families, it comes to our children, we don't find that grace. Why is that so? Why is that so? All right. So if we do something as parents, if we begin to understand as parents that our children are just like us, our children are human beings 100%. The only difference between you and your 8-year-old, your 4-year-old, your 10-year-old, the only difference between you and that child that is making a mistake is the fact that you have a well-developed prefrontal cortex, that part of your brain that controls reasoning, right? The part of your brain that controls reasoning and many other things, right? That helps you make informed decisions, right? For you, this part of your brain is fully developed as a parent. At least if you are in your mid-20s, you have this part of your brain fully developed. But your child, the one that you are expecting so much from, and you do not cut slides, doesn't even have that part of their brain fully developed. So what it means is your child is liable to make mistakes. Your child is excused to make mistakes because your child does not have all that they need to make informed decisions. Your children do not have the full capacity to make informed, or to make the right kind of decisions that keeps them away from mistakes. So it simply means that as a child, it is part of your child's makeup to make mistakes. It is part of your child's makeup to fail. It is part of your child's makeup. It is excusable that your child is making mistakes or that your child fails when they try certain things. So, yes, if you can find a place to forgive yourself for your mistakes, if you can find a place to cut yourself slacks, if you can find a place to be civil with people that you work with who make mistakes, then it simply means that you should find 10 times that grace, with your child. But unfortunately, we do not find it, or we do not allow ourselves understand these things so that we can allow our children grow properly, or we can allow them grow with the right kind of regulation so that they do not make further mistakes because of how we have raised them. So yes, so we're having, all right, sorry about that. That was a bit of a glitch there. All right, so let me do an analogy right now. So this is you work somewhere, you work with an establishment, and you have this boss. You have this boss that every time you make mistakes, or every time there is something that doesn't go on well the way the boss expects it to go, or doesn't go well the way it is supposed to be, the boss is always like, hi Maribeth, I would like to speak with you. You go to the office, he has this talk with you, why did you do this, why did you do that, what challenge are you having, what went wrong, and all of that. The boss has the time to listen to you, talk to him, or explain to him why you had to take some of the decisions that you took, or why you had to do some of the things that you did that led to that particular outcome that you have, that is not favorable, or that did not turn out well. You go through this with the boss, and at the end of the day, the boss is able to fill in some of the gaps, and then tell you where you went wrong, where you could have done differently, and all of that. And then you go, okay, you are tender your apologies, and the boss accepts the apologies and all of that, and then allows you a second chance. Now this is boss A. Now you have boss B, that is your boss probably after boss A, or is your boss, it's another of your bosses, right, from another department, but hey, you also report to that person. And now for boss B, it's a different ball game altogether. Every time there is a mistake, or things do not go out, happen the way the boss expects it, the boss will bring down the house. Like the boss is yelling and shouting and shaming you in front of people, probably in your meetings. The boss with 20, 30 people there, the boss is like talking down at you and all of that. Now, I want to ask you, as a parent, or as an adult, which of these bosses would you respect more? Which of these bosses do you think that you will learn from? Which of these bosses do you think would impact you? 5 years after you leave these bosses, which of these bosses would you have a better memory, would you have established better memory of, or with, and all of that? Which of these bosses really would have impacted you? Let's be realistic. And which of these bosses would you remember? And if you have an opportunity to encounter, or to visit, or to go back right to that establishment, let's imagine that you resigned or you moved location and all of that, which of these bosses will be the reason why you go back there? Or which of these bosses would you hear is in the same city as you are, and you would decide to stop by and say hello to? Which of these bosses? Okay, my guess is it will be boss A, isn't it? It will be the first boss. Why is that so? Because this is the boss that showed you respect. This is the boss that enabled you become better. This is the boss that had time to treat you like a human being. This is the boss that allowed you learn from your mistakes. It is the same thing with our children. If you are that parent that does not allow room for mistakes, if you are that parent that does not stop to help the child figure out why they went wrong or look at what the root causes of their setbacks, mistakes, or failures are. If you are that boss, that parent that doesn't stop to find out from your child or to understand from your child, what are your struggles? What are you struggling with? How can I help you? What do you need me to do for you? Where is the challenge and all of that? If you don't do that, what you will be doing to that child is like what boss 2 has done to you or does to you. And what will happen is you realize that you will become disconnected from this boss. Okay? You would become disconnected from this kind of boss, right? Because there is nothing that connects you with this person, because of course this person has not put themselves in the place of understanding. This person has refused to be an understanding boss, and so you cannot relate with this person, or you cannot connect with this person at a level. And this is the same thing that you do to your children when you do not connect with them, or when you are constantly judging them or constantly focus on their mistakes rather than on helping them become better when they make their mistakes. What happens is what we call avoidance begins to happen. Okay, you will be boss, your child will begin to avoid you. Your child will avoid you. Your child will move away from you when you are this kind of parent that does not allow them grow from their mistakes, or do not allow them, make mistakes and rise from their mistakes. Okay? So, do I have who is in the house? Who is in the house? Let me see you in the comments. If you are in the house, let me see you in the comment. Don't just stay in the comment, in the background. Let me see you in the comments. Let me know that you have joined us and you are with us. All right. Okay, so I have talked about that analogy. And so it's something, this kind of analogy is what I put myself through every now and then. So every time, my children have challenges, every time there are challenges with young people that I live with or young people that I work with, I always allow myself a few minutes to put myself in their shoes and go through this kind of analogy. And then how I would feel given the situation, or if we were to swap situation. I try to come at the child, or I try to operate from that point of view when I am dealing with children, because hey, children are simply just like us. Okay, so any correction that does not replace a negative behavior, okay, in your child, any correction that you give as a parent that does not replace a negative behavior in your child is not an effective kind of correction. Okay? Because what happens more often than not is when our children fail or when our children make mistakes, what we do as parents is we tend to respond by punishing them. Okay, so our response to mistakes in our children is punishment. Our response to mistake or failure in our children is punishment. Now, this is such a wrong kind of response. Okay, it's such a wrong kind of response, because what the response does is it interrupts the behavior. Okay, it interrupts the behavior, but it does not replace the behavior with a direct positive, right? A positive opposite. What you're supposed to do as a parent at all times is when your child presents a negative behavior, what you are meant to do is focus on the behavior. What is the behavior that you see and you do not want to see? Especially when you're dealing with young children, when you're dealing with your toddlers, when you're dealing with young children. This is the best outlook, right, to mistakes and failure when you are dealing with young children. What is the behavior? At all times, ask yourself as a parent, what is the negative behavior that I see? You must be in tune with what is happening around you. What is the negative behavior that you see per time? Okay, what's the negative behavior? This child is throwing a tantrum. This child has just broken something of value. This child is always yelling. This child is always cursing. This child is always doing badly in school. This child does not know how to write, or this child is refusing to write, as we like to look at it. This child is doing poorly in school. This child does not know how to manage their emotions. This child does not know how to manage their friendship. This child does not know how to relate with other people. These are all negative behaviors that will pose, or that could pose, our children can present with time. Now, when our children present this negative behavior, as a parent, you want to connect, you want to identify what the negative behavior is per time. So what negative behavior are you dealing with at that time? We're not talking about what he did 2 weeks ago. We're not talking about what the child did 1 year ago. We're not talking about the last time that he failed. We're not talking about 2 years ago that he failed. We're talking about what negative behavior are you dealing with at that time. That is where your focus should be as a parent. Okay? The next thing you want to do, as soon as you identify the negative behavior that you are dealing with per time, the next thing you want to do is, rather than use beating and yelling and beating, yelling, insult, shaming, right? At that point, what you want to do is be creative to think immediately of an opposite, a positive opposite behavior, right? An opposite behavior that is positive, that you want to use to replace that negative behavior. As I said, if your response, or if your first response is to beat the child, to yell at the child, to shame the child, what you are doing is you are just interrupting that negative behavior. You have not been able to replace the negative behavior. Until you are able to replace the negative behavior, you have not done anything. Another thing to look at, some parents will say, oh, you can actually go ahead and strike the child or beat the child, or let's inflict some pain on the child, and then later you can replace the negative behavior with the positive behavior. Okay, they call it the carrot and rod and carrot, or whatever you call it, and all of that. Now, I always ask parents like this the question, okay, is it possible to replace the negative behavior with a positive behavior without having to inflict pain? So what is if we are saying, oh, eventually I will replace the negative behavior with a positive behavior. Now, where is the place of the pain? What is the pain supposed to achieve? So I always say to parents, the parents that I work with, and I remind myself of this every time, your priority as a parent is to ensure that you are exuding the right energy in your space. Your child's cognitive ability, your child's emotional skills, your child's emotions, your child's well-being, your child's stability, your child's ability to regulate, your child's ability to regulate, your child's emotional skills, social skills, and the kind of modeling that you are offering your child is dependent on the energy that you are exuding per time. So yes, you can decide to go with beating the child, shaming the child, and all of that. When you do that, you exude the wrong kind of energy into your environment. Okay, so there is strife, there is pain, there is anger, there is all of that. Now, when you do all of these, you put out this negative energy into your environment, you now go and still look for the positive opposite and introduce it for that child to learn. And then the child end up learning, as we like to claim. Okay, so why infuse your environment with such negative energy when you can still introduce the same positive opposite, right? Keep the energy intact, right? And still get the same result. For those of you who think that beating and replacing will still give you the same result. So I would rather go with keeping the energy sound, keeping the energy right, being firm as a parent, and then replacing the negative behavior with an opposite, positive behavior, opposite positive behavior. When you do that, it means that you are being conscious, you are being deliberate as a parent about the energy in your home, because a lot of, the stability of your home and the stability of that child is dependent on the energy. Energy is everything. Children, energy is everything. The energy in our space is everything. How stable your child is, how connected your child is with you, to you, how deep your relationship is, how connected you are, how happy your child is, how happy the ambience in your home is dependent on the energy in that space. So there is nothing that is worth the energy in your space. I repeat that. There is nothing that is worth the energy in your space. Okay? So yes, that's what you want to do. You want to recognize at every point, right, the negative behavior, and then replace that negative behavior with a positive, with a positive opposite immediately. Now, after you have introduced the positive opposite, right, you must understand one thing, that repetition is the mother of all learning. The fact that you have introduced an opposite behavior that your child is supposed to exhibit, okay, given the same situation, does not mean that your child would learn it, absorb it, use it one time. Your child will have to keep practicing and repeating that positive behavior given the same situation over and over again before your child will become used to it, or your child can internalize this. Okay, take that to your everyday situation. We're talking about, okay, let's say a child that is constantly throwing a tantrum when the child cannot get what they want. All right. Now, this child is, every time you say no, every time you say you can't have something, the child begins to cry and yell and then all of that. And as a parent, you tell the child, that's enough, that's enough, that's enough. You want to cry right now? Okay, that's fine. You want to cry right now? That's fine. I'm going to just allow you stay there and cry. And when you're ready to speak with mommy, you come and talk to me. Or you can decide to interrupt that negative behavior by giving the child, pa, 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 shut up. And then the child shuts up. Okay? Pa, 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 and then the child shuts up. All right? And then later you say to the child, that's not how to behave. Now, for some of us, we even walk away after the papa. There is no place of replacing it with a positive behavior, or teaching the child how to go about that behavior, in the future and all of that. Okay, now let's take that you are that parent, don't have time for beating and slapping and doing all of that. All you want to do is, let the child calm down, teaching the child how to regulate, because you understand that if you respond to your child by beating and slapping the child during that episode, what you have done is you have modeled to the child how to resolve, episodes in the future when they are having interactions with their friends and their friends are not being reasonable. You have taught your child to slap and beat and hit and yell, and after that, get the satisfaction that they need, because that's how you have modeled to the child how to take care of those kind of situations. So it's no wonder that parents who are constantly hitting and beating their children raise children who are constantly fighting and hitting other people, raise children who become very aggressive, raise children who become wife beaters and husband beaters, raise children who become aggressive people in their workplaces. That's the truth. Raise children who become aggressive in the society, raise children who lift up guns and go out to all kinds of places and taking things from people by force, because they have been taught that when people do not reason as you reason, when people do not do what you want them to do, when people do not keep quiet when you say they should keep quiet, when people do not hand to you what you have asked them to hand over to you, what you do is what you use your might. All right. So no wonder we are raising a society of aggressive people, because all that we have taught them, or how we have taught them to regulate, to manage their emotions, or manage, rejection, is by taking it by force, by inflicting pain on other people. matter for another day. But hey, let's come back to the situation with your toddler that is throwing that tantrum. As your toddler is throwing that tantrum, okay, you're calm enough as a parent, because at the back of your mind, you understand that you are a model. At the back of your mind, you understand that the energy in your home is more important than any other thing. At the back of your mind, you understand that you are teaching this child how to regulate in the future. At the back of your mind, you understand that you're teaching this child how he would regulate when he has to deal with his older or his younger sibling. And so you decide you want to be calm at that point and use the opposites, positive behavior. So you say to the child, the next time you want something, you do not have to yell and throw a tantrum and throw yourself like this. Now let us demonstrate, or let us role play the right way to ask mommy or to ask daddy for something. I need you to walk up and you role play how you want your child to do it. Now, the next day, your child will throw a tantrum again. What makes you different? What separates you as a parent? What makes you purposeful as a parent? What makes you a supportive parent? What makes you a parent with the advantage is that for that second time, you are also patient and you're there with the child, repeating the way his teacher is repeating fractions in class on Monday to Friday. The same way his history teacher is repeating the story of Benin Kingdom or now Zao, and is repeating that story. And the child, the next day, she asks the child, so who is Queen Amina? And the child is and then the teacher says, okay, let's go through that story again and all of that. The same way the teacher hangs in there, patiently repeating and allowing your child learn through repetition, because we said that repetition is the mother of all learning. The same way you will stay in there and you will repeat the process to your child. So every time your child posits that behavior, you will repeat the opposite positive behavior to that child. Truth is, if you can do this, what will happen? And if you start doing this early in the life of your child, what happens is gradually your child will begin to, out of 10 times, your child would do the opposite behavior probably 4 times or 5 times. Okay, now when you see the few times, or when you see anything that looks like looks like that positive behavior that you have taught the child, what you want to do is, as a parent, is you want to praise the effort. So the all right, so sorry about that. I think we had a bit of a network glitch there. So what you do is every time. Okay, sorry, I did.
Sorry, I did.
Sorry about this. Okay, I know what to do. Just give me a second, please. All right, so what you do every time you see the child pose that positive behavior that you want to see is that you will praise it. You will praise it extensively. Oh my God, I like the fact that you did as I said you should do. I like the fact that you controlled yourself this time. I like the fact that you asked mommy and you waited for mommy to give you a response. I like the oh my goodness, this network. Okay, so I like the fact that you accepted that no can also be an answer. Well done, baby, and all of that. So as you keep praising their ability to show or to exhibit that positive behavior, what happens is your child begins to feel like a champion. Your child begins to build their self-esteem. Your child begins to trust in their ability to do the right thing. And so your child will exhibit that positive behavior more and more. And this is how you replace negative behavior with positive behavior. Okay? Now, if your child makes the mistake, let's say you have done this for some time, your child is older, and then you get to the point the child begins to pose the positive behavior more, and once in a while or at some point the child, exhibits that negative behavior again. What you want to do at this point is you want to introduce a consequence. Okay, you want to introduce a consequence, but ensure that your consequence is mild. The truth is, the fact that you make your consequence heavier does not replace behavior. Bigger consequences do not mean that your children learn better from the situation. It is you that feels better because you feel, I have shown him pepper. You know the way someone slaps you, and then after the person slaps you during a fight, they come and they put you apart, and they're like, okay, you can't hit them back, you can't hit them back. You know that feeling that you are not satisfied. You are like, oh my goodness, this fight cannot end. You must have that last, that last say, that last slap back. It's the same thing with you as a parent. When your children do things, okay, it's that same last slap feeling, man. I must do this child something so that this child will know that I am his father, so that this child will know that I'm his mother. That is what is going on in your head. That's going on. What's going on with you? Not because that is what will help the child become better. Not because that is what will replace the negative behavior. That is your ego struggling. So yes, as a parent, if you are going to help your children use negative occurrences in their life, use mistakes in their life, to become better, you will have to deal with your emotions, and you will have to deal with that ego that is constantly wanting to satisfy itself by inflicting pain on your children. You need to stop being a lover of pain. You need to stop being a lover of inflicting pain in the name of discipline. You cannot raise children to understand that mistake and failure is an ingredient for success if you constantly allow your emotions and your ego come between you and the child's learning. A lot of us will say, oh, I'm raising my children, I teach them. You know how we hear these things and we think our children know these things because it's all over the place. Oh, I teach my children that they are allowed to make mistakes. How can you tell me you teach your children that they are allowed to make mistakes, and you're constantly beating your children, yelling at them, and giving them huge consequences, taking a whole month, taking them off, things that, you have given to them, or things that they love to do. You take them off it for a whole long month. You give them such, very huge kind of consequences in the name of teaching them. No, that is you. You need to be satisfied, not them. So if your children, if replacing the negative behavior is your goal, as it should be, then what you should be doing is looking at per time at the negative behavior, identifying that negative behavior, looking for the opposite, being creative enough to see how to introduce the positive opposite behavior to that child. Do that and be ready to be patient and consistent with introducing that opposite positive behavior. Ensure that you are praising the positive opposite behavior that you have introduced. Ensure that every time your child makes an attempt, makes an effort at it, that you are praising it extensively and that you don't let it pass. A lot of times as parents, what we do not forget to catch our children doing wrong. We are constantly catching our children when they do wrong, but we do not catch them when they are doing right. So if you're a parent that wants to raise children, hi Vera, good to have you. If you're a parent that wants to raise children who understand that mistakes are okay, and they are stepping stones to success, then you must be a parent that is willing to catch your children doing right. You want to amplify their efforts rather than amplify their mistakes. So when you do this, you realize that you are raising a child, right, that understands that mistakes are allowed, okay? And that mistakes is the place from which they will become better, okay, or that they will, build stamina, basically. Okay, train your emotions and responses as a parent. You must train your emotions and your responses. I said that already. You cannot raise children to learn from their mistakes. You cannot raise children to become better at their mistakes without training your emotions and your responses. You have to do something about this. Okay. All right. So recently, our son came back. When our son got into year 7 recently, I mean this year, he going to secondary school this year. And when he resumed school, it was a different ball game. New friends, new people, and all of that. It was different from elementary school, naturally, and all of that. Okay. So at the end of first term, he came with his result. He's always been there, basically doing well and all of that. I don't talk about my children's reports from school a lot. I don't talk about that. Okay. So basically, let's take it. He's been a high flyer and all of that, But at the end of that term, he came home and we noticed, there was some down performance in particular areas, the social sciences. All right. So rather than, it's always been our practice, we don't go all out. Some people will say, okay, maybe your children have not really failed, so you don't understand what failure means, and da, 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 da. But anyway, basically, we have standards. We have a standard. All right. We have a standard, and those standards are really very high. All right. So whenever you are on that, whenever you are on the borderline or you tilt down a little from those standards, we would ask you questions. How can we help you? What's going on here? But because the standard is pretty high, for the average person, it's nothing. But for us, because we work with a standard, so we will ask you questions and we will have the conversation. All right. So we had a conversation at the beginning of that school year, like, okay, that's your first time. Like, okay, we noticed this in this particular area. What's going on here? And then he said to me, okay, I mean, this has been introduced for the first time, things like civic education, French. He's never liked French and all of that, so I really don't like that subject because I don't understand, I really don't like the subject. Basically, that's what he said. I really don't like the subject. And then history is a lot of talking. I would rather just do, the things that I love, math and science and all of that. Okay, so we had the conversation. I'm like, it doesn't make sense that you think that way. Okay, so we went through the whole process of, this is a requirement, and excellence is a thing for us. So excellence requires that you put your best foot out all the time, not minding what subject it is. You put your best foot out all the time. And is this something that you cannot do? Is this something that you absolutely cannot do? If this is something that you absolutely cannot do, we would understand. But this is something that all that is required is that you pay attention in class, you sit and you study, and that's it. Voila. If you can deal with things as, more volume and more that require more, thinking and all of that, like math and chemistry and physics and all of that. If you can deal with that, then you're probably not dealing with this because you have not put your mind to it and all of that. So where would you want me to help you? How would you like me to help you? Okay, so we dealt with that. Okay, this way. And then we did a bit of, helping here and there or supporting here and there. Second time came and everything was fine. All right. And then third time came, of course, after second time term, we were like, okay, we got that, we got that handled, we settled that and all of that. All right, then third time came and boom, it was back like even worse than first time, and in the same area. And of course, naturally, or the average person will go, or with your responses and your emotions and all of that. In fact, as a matter of fact, I didn't go to school to, have that meeting with the teacher or picking. I remember when I was speaking with the teacher online, I actually went like, okay, I don't get it. What happened here? I feel I'm beginning to think that probably maybe the person the teacher is dealing with, maybe this, maybe that, maybe this, and all of that. So when I finished that meeting, at some point before I finished the meeting with the teacher, I had to ask myself, why are you disturbing this woman? Why are you even having this conversation with this woman? You should be looking inward and seeing what the issues could be and all of that. So I said to her, something, it's all right, and all of that. So it meant that we had to go to work, right? It meant that we had to look at the situation deeper, this time. So we looked at the situation deeper. My husband and I looked at the situation deeper, and yes, why it's not a big deal, or why it's easy for us to look at it like it's really not a big deal. What is it? One subject, two subjects, the child doesn't like it, and all of that. Why it's easy for you to look at it that way, okay? But the fact that the child didn't, the fact that that subject, is standing in the way is definitely affecting the child's overall performance. It's definitely affecting the child's GPA. It's definitely, affecting, as I said, the overall performance, right? And for some children, we just take a lot of things for granted as parents. You could have a child that's been a high flyer all their life. You can have a child that's been a high flyer. I'm talking about you out there. You can have a child that's been a high flyer all their life, okay? And at some point, the child has like a major setback, and you just take it that, okay, the child is just refusing not to do well. So he comes and you begin to shout about how the money you spend and all of that. And all of that. You've not looked at how come this child that has always done well, why is he not doing well this time? Why is the child not doing well this time? Or why is the child not doing well since the child got to this school? Or why is the child not doing well since the child got to this, life? Okay, since they got to this phase in their life, why is the child not doing well since this happened or that happened? What we do as parents, we don't look at other things around the child. It could be psychological, it could be, it could be stress, it could be this, it could be that, it could be stress, it could be the new place, it could be the new milestone in the child's life, it could be something, it could be a teacher, it could be anything. And until you start looking at all of these things around the child, what you will do is you will be blinded to the fact that this child probably needs help, and you'll be more focused on the fact that a child decided they will not do well. Because a lot of times that's the only way we see it. Attacking everything. You will go to school, you will not study, you will not this. Sometimes it's more than academics, it's more than them not being interested in their, it's more than them not wanting to pass. Sometimes it's other things, and you need to look into these other things. So we decided we're going to have a retreat with our son this holiday before he goes back to school. Because if this has repeated itself, continuously, and it is this particular 1-2 areas, it means that the child has probably blocked their mind. It could be a mindset block. It could be a mindset block. It could be the people that he's working with. It could be anything, okay? So we decided we're going to have a retreat where we would actually bring in a psychologist. We will work with him. We will do motivation. We will deal with everything. We would be listening to him, and we would be putting ourselves in a place of understanding with him, okay, where we will go through this process. And it's not just academic. For some kids, it could be that you just lost, or they just lost someone dear to them. It could be that your closest friend just relocated. It could be anything at all. Yes. You are big, you are a parent, you are an adult. What rubbish is that? What kind of nonsense? So the person moved. Is it his father? It could be anything for you. Deal with it. You're an adult. You can deal with it. It's okay. Good. Macho man. It's all right. Do your thing. But let the child be the child, and you need to put yourself in the place where you will understand the child. The way the child is reacting to certain situation is not the way you are reacting. That's why it is wisdom as a parent to know that your child is an autonomy, to know that your child is an individual and your child lives outside of you. So you can't continue to use your mind. You can't continue to use the way you look at things or the way you see things to decide what should happen in the life of your children, or decide how your children should think and how they should reason per time. All right. So we decided to put this retreat together, and as with a lot of things that I do, I decided I'm going to go through this journey with as many parents as, in fact, I said 20 parents only who have the same situation. Your child could be dealing with abuse. Your child could be dealing with failure in school, a new place, a situation. Your child could be dealing with one trauma or the other that you are refusing to see. Your child probably came back from school and your child is withdrawn. Your child came back from secondary school or from boarding school. The child is all withdrawn, and you just want to, it's like that, Joe, they will come around when they get to JSS2 or JSS3, they will get used to it and all of that. Sometimes it is trauma that if you can come in and help them right now, they will come out of it faster, and it wouldn't have done a lot of damage in them before they come around. The thing about some of these things, just as a lot of parents say, they will come around. Yes, the thing about some of these things is you will come around, but the damages that would have gone down before the person comes around. Okay, we are human beings. We will bounce back at some points, okay? But there's a lot that would have happened in the brain before the person can bounce back. There is that, you know how we learn, we get to a point, learned helplessness comes in. There is nothing about that I can do about this. So what do? I just resolve and I survive like that. It is the reason people stay in abusive relationships. It's not because the relationships serve them. It is not because of the many things that some of us think as outsiders. It is because the person stays in there and becomes used to it. Learns helplessness. What can I do? I cannot do anything. And then the person stays there and becomes comfortable in that abuse. So a lot of times it is the same thing that happened to your children. They stay there and then learn helplessness. The child is complaining. I don't like this school. This is happening to me. I don't like it. You can see your child losing themselves. You can see your child every time they come back, the child loses some part of them every time they come back. Your posterior child, your child that was all over the place, is gradually losing themselves, and you are just like, it's the best school. It's the best school. He will come round. He will come round. At the end of the day, by the time he comes round, he has disconnected from you. He has distanced himself from you physically and psychologically. Sometimes because of how overbearing you are as a parent, as you know, especially mothers, because of how overbearing you are as a mother, you do not even realize that you are losing the child, because of course it's not obvious physically that you are losing the child, but psychologically the child is disconnecting from you. So yes, your usual practice is what? Gather them in the car. Oh, we're going here, we have to go. The child jumps in the car, you go with the car. You go here, you go there, you dump them, they are with their friend, you are with your friends, you come back, you pick them, you drag them, they go to church, you are in your church, they are in children's church, you come here, you take them to one place, they are playing in the ground, you are there. You do not realize that all of the noise around you is what you have, but you cannot see your child and you cannot see what your child is going through. So at the end, you pack the child and then the child goes back to school. In your head, he had a fantastic holiday because you bounded him in your car every time. He went out with you. He played with his friends every time. You didn't even have the time to look through or see through your child throughout that holiday. In your head, he's doing well, he's doing well. A lot will go under the bridge before you can realize what's going on. All right. So I wrote a story today in my the group where I was talking about, that was my story. I was talking about me when I was in the university. I lost my dad when I was in my second year, second year in the university. My father, at that time, was the closest person to me in my entire life. My father was everything to me at the time. My mom was alive. But my father was everything. If you say the one person in this life that you loved completely helplessly, it was my dad. And then it so happened that in my, I mean, as a teenager, I lost, and it was my first in school, in my second year in the university, death and all of that. He died sometime in November, and I was gone. Okay, so of course, I had to go home for the burial, and all of that and all of that. And after that, I didn't come back. November, I didn't come back to school. December, I didn't come back to school. January, I didn't come back to school. Okay, so eventually I came back to school. I can't remember. I think I just came back at some point. I can't remember. I think I came back. Yes, I came back to write exams. I came back to write my exams. I think so. So I know that I came back and I couldn't even attend classes per se. I just generally prepared for exams somehow. Okay, and all of that. I know that semester I wrote exams like while I was grieving, in the midst of all of it and all of that. All right. So I was away from school for, the better part of that semester. That's the truth. Even when I came back, I was still grieving and all of that, So of course, naturally, at the end, we came back, at the end, second semester, of course, the results do not come out immediately. Eventually results came out and I had a couple of carryovers. Yeah, naturally I had carryovers in, like, I was a science student. I was a botany major, and all of that. So by my third year, I was walking past, my lecturers. He wasn't even my lecturer at the time. I wasn't doing any course with this prof at the time. But I was walking past and he saw me and it's like, young lady, how are you? And I'm like, I'm fine, sir. And all that. Are you in this department? Yes, I am. What level? 300 level. And I don't know you. And then he's like, yeah, come to my office. I went to his office, So at that time, I didn't even know. He was actually my level coordinator. He was the coordinator in charge of my level and all of that, and I don't know, it's God, right? So he looked through a couple of documents and all of that. And the first thing he said to me is, what happened to you? That's what he said to me. You were right. Your GPA was right at the right place, at the end of 100 level. You were high up there. What happened to you first term, 200 level? This was in 300 level. Yeah. So I was in 300 level at this point. So it was like, what happened to you first term of 200 level? And of course, I lost my dad and And then he's looking at it and he's like, no practical in chem, this, no practical in microbiology, this, no practical in. How can you be a botany major and you will not do practicals? How can you be a botany major and you miss your practicals that are about 40% of your assessment and you want to pass? How is that possible? And all of that. So we had that conversation, all of that and all of that. And of course, I think at some point I broke down and I started crying because he was like, how can you make a mess of such, prospects that you had, to come out with, a good grade, like a 2-1 or a first class? How can you make a mess, like, to come out, stop yourself this, badly because of carelessness and that. Okay, so at that point I started crying and all of that. So I guess, there was a connection there. And then he said to me, go and come back and see me tomorrow and all that. So I think he went through, my result. He went through everything and did all the permutations and all of that. And when I came in, he said to me, for you to leave the school with a result that you deserve at least, you can't have a single D till you graduate, right? And then he said to me, your project and every course that is, this credit load has to be, you have to do your best to keep yourself at A's and B's throughout till you leave this school. Uma? So basically, he became some sort of an accountability partner in my life. He became some sort of someone that, he became somebody that, demanded this of me. And so I went to work. If I have any of my friends listening to me here, they will know what I'm talking about, because by 300 level, I knew that I came to school. By 300 level, every other thing had to move. I mean, every other thing had to move. All the lessons they didn't teach me at home before I got to school, all the lessons I decided not to listen to, everything had to move, because for me at that point, it was life, it was being between the devil and the deep blue sea and all of that. So what am I saying? Children need accountability. Right. Then, apart from that, we go through things in our lives that are traumatic. But as parents, we just ignore those things in the lives of our children. And because we see children jumping around, moving around, being up and down the place, we just assume that everything is okay. Children do not have the ability, they do not have the mental capacity, they do not have the reasoning ability to put words together and make you feel or make you understand what they feel or what they are going through per time. A lot of the time, they do not even know that they need help. They do not have their prefrontal cortex, the part of their brain that is responsible for reasoning. They do not have it fully developed till they're about 25, somewhere in their mid-20s. So they do not reason the way you reason. So as parents, sometimes we will have to calm down and look at our children beyond what we see, okay? We have to look into their minds and into their souls. Sometimes we do not even know how to do this on our own. We need interventions. We need experts. We need professionals. We need people who are ready to work with us to help us synergize or to become in sync with our children, for us to help our children reach the best or their best potential. So this is why I have decided to go on this retreat with my son and not do it alone because I'm a parent coach. Oh, I know everything, I'm going to do it alone. No. I am an expert in child motivation. I know, I have taken courses on how to motivate children. I'm an expert in parent coaching. I have done a lot of work in parenting and all of that. No, my son is not a parent, so I am not about to teach him about parenting. I am a child motivator. I can motivate you, as in I will take your child and I'll motivate your child till your child begins to see himself as huge. But hey, I do not claim to have all that it takes, to understand what is going on in the mind of the child. I am not a professional psychologist. So yes, I'm going to be working with a professional psychologist. I'm going to be working with people who work in schools so that we can help these children. I want to help my child. I want to deal with whatever trauma. I know my child is not struggling. In case you are telling yourself, oh, no, this is not for me. My child is not struggling. No, my child is not struggling. But hey, there are areas that he's having some mind blocks about or around that. Hey, there is no need. If excellence is your core, if excellence is a core value, then we'll be excellent at everything. Okay, it doesn't matter if you're going to be a science student. It doesn't matter if you're going to bring the moon to the earth. In the meantime, you would do civic education, because civic education is part of your curriculum, or it's part of your requirements today. So you would do it, and you would do it excellently well. So no, we're not going to just force you and bring you a lesson teacher and bring you this and bring you that. We're going to work with you from here. Your mind, that's where you fix people. That's the first place to fix anything. That's the first place to fix people. In their mind, they need to know, they need to understand, and they need to believe first in their mind. When you get the mind settled, every other thing will be settled. And so that's why we're doing this. So we call that program, or that retreat, we call it from child setback to child success retreat. Okay, and that retreat begins on the 1st or 2nd of September, so that our children can go through that 1 week retreat with us, and after that they can go to school refreshed and ready. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up an accountability process, okay, system, where we can hold you and the child accountable, just the way my lecturer, my prof, held me accountable. And thanks to him, I was able to bounce back, right, and come out of school without an extra year and manage to come out with a gentleman result. It could have been worse. if you know what I'm talking about. I mean, I came back with a good gentleman result. All right. So basically, what are we saying? There is so much you can do with and for your children, even after they've had setbacks and after they've made mistakes. We just need to teach them that they can bounce back, and they can bounce back with our support. Who better to go through that journey with your child than you? All right, so train your children, right, to be better leaders. You need to teach them. All right, so if you are able to teach your children that mistakes are acceptable and mistakes, so what you're doing, you're training them to be good leaders. All right, so your child that is able, to bounce back from their mistake is when they find themselves in a place of authority, they are able to cut other people's slacks and understand that other people can make mistake also. Okay, so I think we're going to stop here for today. I don't like to take too much of our time. We've talked a lot already about mistakes and how we can help our children bounce back. As a parent, you need your children to make those mistakes. When you allow your children make mistakes as a parent, it allows you recognize teachable moments. Okay, it is through their mistakes that you're able to recognize, or you're able to get moments that you can teach. Some things are better taught when you are in it. So if you're going to continue telling your children about you're going to continue telling your children about a particular mistake. I don't want you to make this mistake. Sometimes the lesson do not take root as much as when that thing has happened. All right. I know how I told my children you can't leave the kitchen. When I taught them, when we started learning to cook, my son, when we started learning to cook, I kept on telling him, you can't leave the kitchen when you're cooking. You stay there, you finish cooking before you leave the kitchen and all of that. Okay. So sometimes he will run out, watch a bit of a program, run out, come and chat a little with his friends, if he's or something like that and all that. Until the day he actually fried chicken nuggets. He fried those nuggets, forgot about the nuggets until the entire kitchen started to smoke. The neighbors had to call us. The neighbors were screaming and all of that. By the time we got to the living room, everyone was pitch black. It was really a terrible and scary situation for him. I promise you, after that day, after that day, I didn't have to, I didn't have to talk too much about, what to do in the kitchen anymore. When daddy came, his dad came, he was like, no, 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 he shouldn't be going to the kitchen anymore. I'm like, no, 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 this is the time that he should go to the kitchen. This is the time he should actually go to the kitchen. All right. So there are certain mistakes that, I'm not saying we should, certain things should happen before we learn. But what I'm saying is, when your children make these mistakes, take them as a blessing, because it gives you, a teaching or a teachable opportunity for you to teach your children about certain things, so that they don't make the same mistakes in the future. When your children make mistakes, they fail and they do some of the things that they do, it allows you a chance to model to them. Okay, so for instance, your toddler is throwing a tantrum, your toddler is yelling, your toddler is doing all of that. What it does is it gives you the opportunity to teach your child how to stay calm in situations. It helps you model to your child how to regulate. It helps you model to your child how to be emotionally stable. So the more stable, the more calm, the more you regulate, is how your child will learn to stay calm in situations. Okay, and your child is able to manage situations better when they learn how to stay calm. If the pilot that landed the plane in what's that river in America, if he wasn't someone that knew calmness from inside, he probably would have been so restless and fidgeted so badly that he would have crashed that plane and killed so many people, as opposed to staying calm in the situation and solving, for the kind of outcome that he got eventually. Okay, we take these things for granted, but these things are our reality. The calmer you are as a person, okay, and your ability to stay calm in situation and model this calmness to your children, is how your children will learn how to be calm, how your children will learn how to regulate. You cannot make decisions and be restless at the same time and make the right kind of decisions. The best decisions are made from a place of calmness. calmness. The best decisions are made from a place of calmness. That is why you see when we have parents, we have situations where husbands have killed their wives or their children, or parents have killed, their mothers have beaten their children to death or something. We have situations like this. When those people come, when they calm down, what you hear is, I was so angry. It is the devil. And they're not lying. They didn't wake up that morning and made up their mind that they were going to kill their children. No, they didn't. They didn't wake up that morning and made up their mind that they were going to kill their spouse. In many cases, they did not. A lot of times, it's that inability to stay calm on the inside while you take a decision or when you make a choice. That inability to stay calm in that situation is what makes them, their inability to regulate, okay, is what makes them be so volatile as to, and then leading them to such destructive acts. Not necessarily because they want to be that destructive. So when, as a parent, you know how to stay calm, you know how to, say to your child, hey, sweetie, I'm just going to sit down here and watch you. I need you to put yourself together. I need you to put yourself together. Let's talk about it. When you're able to do some of these things, they say it's an Oyibo thing. Just see, when people tell you those things, just let it pass from one ear and bust out from the second. It's not an Oyibo thing. It is a human thing. Okay, it's a human thing. The reason you can stay here and say it's Oyibo thing, it's Oyibo thing, it's Oyibo thing, it's Oyibo thing, the reason you can say that, it's because these people have practiced this over and over again. Their parents have learned to be calm. So the cycle has continued over and over again that we can now say it is a white man's thing to be calm in situations. Okay, you should work with a boss who is calm. I worked with an American, I had worked with other people in the same institution, in the same place, right? Frustration, exactly. I worked with other people in the same place, in the same workplace, right? Other bosses and all of that. But I had a chance to work with this really calm woman, and everything that I learned, almost everything, 98% of all I learned, in the education sector, I learned in that 1 year from one person. So one person gave me the kind of impact that I had not gotten in the 4 years before I met her. Okay, one person gave me that level of impulse, and that's because the person could stay calm in every situation and is able to focus on the issue at all times. So when you learn to focus on the issue at all times, there is stability around you. No wonder you all want to japa. No wonder you're all preparing your children to go to that world. No wonder we all want to leave everything, pack our bag, and go to a stable society. That society is only stable because there is calmness, there are boundaries, there is calmness, there is civility, there is things are working, and the things are working because people are calm. The things are working because people are civil. The things are working because people understand boundaries. That's why, and that's why you're all packing your bag and you're running. Problem with us is we lie to ourselves too much. You lie to yourself too much. So today you're saying to your child, if anybody touches you, if anybody tries you, roll your hand and slap him. Yet you are preparing that child to end up, right? In America, in the US, in the UK. That's why you go to university. Let him go and roll his hand and slap someone if you will not end up in jail. So why are you setting the child up for a life that you do not want him to live? Why are you preparing him for a life that does not exist? The life where you roll your hand and slap people because they try you does not exist anymore. Your child will slap someone and your child will end up in prison. Okay? So I always say to those kind of parents, as a matter of fact, what makes you think that that hand that your child is rolling to slap someone? What makes you think that the other person's hand is not harder than your child's own? Okay? So when you set your children up for failure, always stop to think of what it is that you're doing already. Okay? All right. So yes, children who will learn to make mistakes become people who are more assertive. They are assertive. They know how to stay in situations and to talk through those situations. Because what do you do when your child makes a mistake or your child fails? You are able to sit down with them and look at why they made that mistake, why they failed, what do you think the problem is, what went wrong, what could you have done better, and all of that. So when you're able to do all of this, right, basically you allow your child begin to think from a place of reasoning. And children who are raised to think from a place of reasoning grow up to be, young people who are assertive, young people who can reason, young people who stay in situations and they don't just react. You raise children who are not reactive, okay, but children who can reason and all of that. All right, so thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to have to stop here. If you leave me, I will go on and on and on, but that's not the goal. Thank you for everyone who joined, even for those who joined us late. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you, Chidima. Thank you, Shembon Vera. Thank you, everyone else who has not commented and is on this live stream. I do not take it for granted that you allow me be a part of your journey. So if you would like to be a part of that retreat, okay, help your child, right, move from setback to success. If you'd like to be a part of that retreat, let us know in the comments or send us a message. Our phone number is always, so just put it in the comment. Thank you to Olamide. All right, so if you would like to be a part of that retreat, do let us know. Just put it in the comments, okay, or send us a chat on 081 306 21566. Let us know right there that you would like to be a part of the from setback to success retreat. I said I am the first person. I took the first slot because I am the first one that is going on this journey with my child, and you are welcome to go on this journey with me. I promise you it's going to be an amazing accountability, refreshing, bonding, understanding, deep psychological, empowering session that you will have. And we're doing it in the first week of September, right, so that our children can go back to school empowered and ready to take on the world, take on every aspect of their life, and be successful at it. Thank you very much. Have a beautiful rest of the day. If you're catching the replay, let us know that you did. My name is Maribeth Shima. I am the founder of the Parenting Through Mentorship Academy and Community, and I'm signing out right now. Have a blessed day. Bye.